Hello, John. Here we are, episode number 4 of Unscripted. How you doing?
Hey, Greg. I'm doing all right. I'm still in Philadelphia. I'll be heading home this afternoon.
All right. So you guys concluded your negotiating session yesterday. Was it a late session, or you guys get out of there pretty early?
We finished mid-afternoon.
Okay. All right. So how about a recap? What transpired these last 3 days?
We opened up the week with a presentation from ALPA's ENFA, Economic and Financial Analysis Department. They gave a presentation to the company on using the company provided data, looking at possible different metrics for the SAM for 4A2B and C. We're looking at different ratios of scheduled credit hours, actual credit hours, scheduled block time hours, and actual block hours. It led to a really good discussion, and it points out several issues that are associated with the SAM. We're not sure where that's going to go, but we're glad to have that discussion with them. After that, this week comprised of a lot of passes and mainly two sections, sections 8 and 26. I'll start with 26, which is the general section, but the pilots, I think, would like to know we TA'd section 26. We're satisfied with how that turned out. It provides some commuting enhancements, particularly in the
Okay.
protections. Uh, Even when for like purchase transportation, offline, like on an airline ticket. So it's more robust than what it was before. There's also some flight data definitions and everything that our safety people were concerned about. That's been resolved.
Okay.
Section 8, we might as well talk about that right now. You
Okay.
asked me, we talked at least once or twice about this, and I've always maintained that we would uh, communicate in a really transparent way unless it inhibited or negatively affected negotiations. So for the last several sessions, I have held off publicly commenting on what's been going on in Section 8, which is the deadheading section. We have sought, due to our change in circumstances, where it's harder for us to get to work now with the loss of the postal flying, an enhancement to the deviation bank. The TA-23, it had a quarterly one, and then the bank halved a few times. We've sought a new construct that allows for a longer retention of the pilot's monies into a combination of the hotel room cancellation bank and the deviation bank. We've achieved that. And Section 8 would be good to go, except for what's at the bottom of the Section 8 that keeps showing up. For years, and with multiple negotiating committees, the company has tried and failed to insert language that would allow them to deadhead us around on company aircraft. This version of it is both for mid-trip deviation and for front and back end. Very similar to like what a lot of us saw over in Asia during the COVID pandemic.
Right. Right.
And this is problematic for us on multiple levels due to PIC authority, system form efficiencies. It's going to would greatly reduce your layovers, and besides, what the obvious is with the deviation bank, the impact on the deviation bank. So I'm just going to take you a second, and we'll have this in our update, just so the pilots understand. This is the language that the company continually asserts into their Section 8. It's Section 8A3D, scheduling of deadheads on company aircraft. Notwithstanding Section 8A3C, the company may schedule deadheads on company aircraft operating international flight sequences for the purpose of accomplishing mid-trip deadheads, intercontinental flight sequences other than for the purposes of accomplishing mid-trip deadheads, provided, however, such deadheading pilots shall have access to an onboard rest facility, e.g. bunk, crew rest module, and receive deviation bank credit of $2,250. Now, you can see where the problems would be for that. That I I would say that the continual reinsertion of that it might have started out into a deterrence to try to get us to stick to this Section 8 from the 2023 TA.
Yeah.
Now, Now it's just, they know where they stand. We would have TA'd this section multiple dates ago. It's back in the company's court, and they've said that they're going to table that, which means they want to wait and see how the entire compensation package shows up at the very end. So unfortunately, 8's not going to be able to be TA'd till whenever we reach an agreement.
Good.
Additionally, they gave us a counter proposal back to our Section 12, which is our hours of service. There's another essential redlining of all our proposals. The one that caused quite a spirited discussion, I would say, is a good way to put it, had to do with revisions and extensions. Currently you can be extended internationally for 84. We've proposed to reduce that down to 24 and 48. The company continues to maintain that there's not a problem with revisions and extensions. We just find that baffling. We don't believe them. We've got darts that are just coming in by the minute, and that's their position. Go ahead.
If I could, John, I just did a count on how many darts we've received since asking for it last time we had Unscripted, and I had like almost 200 darts talking about these extensions.
Right. Earlier this week when I checked, our overall count that was going on was like around 350 darts or so. Okay. And I apologize for the noise. I'm 15 floors above the city of brotherly love, and there's a bit of honking going on down there. So
they're not happy with the way things are going at the table either, are they?
No, they're not. They sure aren't. So, for the company to maintain, we say that the revisions, extensions are on par or even worse than what they were during the pandemic. They deny that. We've asked for data. We haven't received it. And we'll get it eventually. But this is a big issue. This is an issue that has percolated to the top that wasn't an issue 24 months ago, like several other things. But now it is a big dot deal. And we're not going to come off of dealing with that. We have to deal with that. So let me talk to you about a few things overall. We had our scope presentation on Wednesday morning. Michael Winston out of Manhattan's our attorney. Michael led the presentation. We have requested company data. In particular, we've received some of it, but not all of it. We are asking for types and volume of freight that's on the purple, orange, and white networks inbound to the U.S. from certain cities like Honolulu, Paris, just around the world, so we can get a gauge of understanding what's going on. That hasn't been provided yet. It would have been nice to have it because it would allow us to refine our proposal. So Michael and our attorneys who are handling this section, I just did the opening remarks, and we gave them 10 concepts. And the concepts basically deal with 3 different areas. One of them, which is overarching, is transparency. Another one has to do with some clarifications and stuff about successorship and things like that, and alpha merger policy. Other areas deal with, what's going on, like with the belly freight, and to what extent is it an alternative transportation system that doesn't involve the pilots. I will tell you, Sal, our scope committee chairman, was with us. We interact very closely with Sal and his committee, and we have several other areas that we've identified that were some of the other concepts that were presented were reduced crew operation, right? Having 2 pilots on the flight deck at all times. And then here's another one. Even though Section 23 is not open, which is the furlough section, we proposed a no furlough clause for all the pilots who would be on the master seniority list at the date of signing of the TA, whenever that would happen. Now, I don't know exactly the methodology or how this is going to advance going forward. We've proposed, we have 2 large negotiating committees, and they're especially large, like when retirement insurance are involved. But sometimes you get a lot of things accomplished quicker in a smaller group. So we believe that maybe the scope will proceed for a little while with a small group that's that's comprised of 3 of our attorneys, headed up by Michael, with the company. We're hoping the company will agree to do this, so we can reduce these concepts to cogent writing that would make it into a contract eventually. So we're pleased about our Section 1. Here's some opening remarks I told the company. We are not here to inhibit the company or the corporation's ability to do business and to grow, but we need to provide career protections for our pilots. And, just for example, 51% of all the 777 frequencies are not only international, well, that's besides international. 51% of our 777 frequencies fly between 2 foreign locations, extraterritorial to the United States. And on average, almost 37% of all the block time flown by the 777 is flown between 2 international locations. So concepts such as these are very important of us, to recognize flying that's done by our pilots around the world. It's going to be a challenge, but we believe we have a very good attorney helping us. We're highly confident in his abilities and with the expertise we have on our side, and we hope that we can get to where we need to be in Section 1. It'll be a difficult task, I'm sure, because it's an incredibly complex task, but we'll get there. So with that, all of our sections are on the table. We still do not have the company's retirement counterproposal or their compensation counterproposal to what we presented in Chicago around October 22nd or 23rd, and that's either 6 or 7 weeks ago. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up, and I didn't want to say this part at the very beginning because people might tune out or walk out of the room, the mediator has determined that since there has been lack of progress by both parties, that we're not going to meet in January. We were disappointed to hear that, but that's certainly the NMB's prerogative. We're going to use that time to continue to negotiate and keep what I'm prepared to negotiate. I'm sorry I misspoke, for when we do resume. Undoubtedly, we're asking for a lot, and that's because our pilots are expecting a lot. We're in year 9 of a contract. The world is vastly different than what it was in 2015. The airline collective bargaining situation has changed in the industry, and so that's an issue with pay and everything else. Now, our closest competitor is UPS, and the IPA and UPS are negotiating, and I believe they're making good progress. We are hoping for, in the near future, to have a meeting with the IPA leadership and their negotiating committee so we can compare notes and make sure that neither one of us undercuts each other. They're our closest competitor, and they make the most sense to understand what's going on over in their contract. And the IPA has historically done very well, especially in pay.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I wish it was better news. I think everybody listening to this agrees. I think, I feel like we're being slow rolled. I don't know if that's the case. I find it disappointing, and I'm sure everyone else listening does, that, 6 weeks when you ask for the retirement package and compensation, heck, they could have pushed across TA1 if that was their starting point.
I'm glad you brought that up. I've heard these rumors, and I've heard other pilots talk about, well, back in the spring, the company had this offer that they were getting ready to give to the previous negotiating committee, but never had that chance. Well, we've had several opportunities now to be in front of the company negotiators. That offer has never materialized. So that was probably just a rumor. I think that with regards to the company, they're accusing us of slow rolling. We're not. We've got everything out. What we're not going to do is we're not going to negotiate against ourselves, right? So if we had their compensation and the retirement, and we understood what their 2 pieces of the puzzle were there, then we could maybe be able to start considering adjustments that we would need to make. But especially in the work rules, Section 4, the hourly rate is just one half of the equation on how you get paid. And everybody's very acutely aware now what's getting ready to happen with your guarantees in February with 4A2C. So, like I said, we're not going to negotiate against ourselves. The only time I ever do that is with my wife, and that's because I have to do that. But, with regards to what's going on here, that's not going to happen. Okay. And, we're working on an update right now. In fact, I've used that quote, Dennis Green, man, he was a great football coach with the Arizona Cardinals. I think it was in 2006, the Bears just drummed them. And in the post game, Dennis Green said, they were asking him about the game and the Bears. He goes, they are who they thought that they were. And that's exactly what's going on here. This is very typical of the company's behavior from what I've seen in the past. That I'm not sure, with regards to their negotiating committee, how empowered they are. They're certainly empowered that if we make a mistake, they have authority to take. We're fully empowered to bind the association into an agreement. Right now, I haven't seen much come out of the company. I'm not sure who they're answering to, but what's going on right now isn't working. We hope that changes whenever we get back. The latter part of that Dennis Green quote was, they are who we thought they were, and we let them off the hook. Well, we don't subscribe to that last part. We're going to still represent our pilots how they need to be represented. We're going to spend time talking to the MEC. We, despite what you might hear, we didn't open up, maternity leave, insurance. Look at Section 24, filling of vacancies. You find a lot of criticism on that section. There's a lot of areas we could have gone. We are, because of what's happened with regards to it being a failed TA, it's not a complete start over from Section 6 openers, starting brand new. And we are using quite a bit of what was in the TA, and we're refining it, and we're being responsive to our pilots' polling inputs and what we know from interacting with our pilots, and just what we know. In the end, we have to answer to you and the other pilots, assuming you're still an active pilot at that time, Greg.
I don't know.
I know it's getting close.
TikTok, man. TikTok.
Right. But in the end, here's the great thing. I don't know if you want to call it great. I have 5 entities I have to interact with, and either they manage my expectations or I manage their expectations, however you want to view it. But I have to interact and answer to the NMB and the mediator. I have to interact and answer to the company. I have to interact within my own committee, which is not a problem because we're very like-minded. I have to interact with the MEC, and most importantly, I have to interact and answer to the pilots. We're there to do the pilot's will, and we're going to do that. This is not the end of the world. It's certainly, not going to be received well, and I understand that. We would like to be further along. We just need to have all the pieces of the puzzle to do that. I think it'd be very instructive for every pilot to listen to Marty Harrington's podcast. The February is going to come along, and it's very clear we're going to be in 4A2C. I'm sure the company wants us there. It's insane to me when I look at like the January bid pack, especially my aircraft, the 777, and the amount of reserve coverage and what I know historically has worked in the past. And they're going to continue to claim there's not an issue with revisions and extensions, and all of that you just can't reconcile. At least I can't. But regardless of that, Greg, we're going to keep going. We're going to talk with the pilots. We'll be talking with the MEC. We'll be prepared to engage the next time the mediator puts us back together.
Well, John, once again, thank you for putting the pilots first and keeping them in mind. It's everything you do at the table. I mean, thanks for protecting us. So with that, until next time, I'm sure we'll be talking. We'll get another Unscripted out probably before the February session.
Yeah, or if something develops before then,
absolutely.
We'll be glad to do that. Thanks, Greg.
Right. You're welcome, and we'll look forward to reading your recap through the email system.
Okay, thank you.
Take care. Safe travels.